Right, well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Huddersfield Planning Committee. And I'll not hang around. Item 1, membership of subcommittee, with 3 apologies from Councillor Bill Armour, Tim Bamforth and Suli Richards. Item 2, minutes of previous meeting. Somebody prepared to move them? Moved. Seconded, Councillor Davis. All in favour, please show. Thank you. Item 3, declarations of interest in lobbying. Are there any? Do you wish to start, Councillor Bellamy?
Thank you, Chair. I'm just trying to find out what. Page 85 to 110. I've had conversations with the applicant in the past, but made no comments at all. And we were obviously contacted by planning officers, but no advice given and things. So.
I was meaning conversations with people in the Newsham ward regarding Glenhill Farm, the page 131 to 148. I referred them to the Newsham councillors, which include Councillor Cooper, Councillor Karen, Alice, and Councillor Thuley Richards. And I've also been, I was phoned by the owner of the farm, who was under the assumption that I was the councillor for the area, but as Councillor Cooper knows, the boundary from Newsham and Almondbury goes down K Lane at that point, and so the one side of the road is Newsham, one side of the road is Almondbury. So I talked to him and told him to refer to his councillors in his area. Oh, that's fine. How are you, Andrew? Okay. Yes. Cheers.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I received a call on Monday from the applicant in relation to the application at Gledhill Farm, page 131 to 148. No advice given, and he did say that he wanted to ring around other members of the planning committee, and I said that's a matter for himself, but I won't be giving any information right now, so no advice given. Thank you.
Is there any further? I take it everybody. No, none. Thank you. Item 4, admission of the public. They've been admitted in the other room. Yes. Any deputations or petitions?
None received, Chair.
Public question time.
None, Chair.
Right. At this stage, we've got a legal officer to give us a bit of an intro.
Thank you, Chair. Deborah Wilkes, Legal Services. I would like to make a short announcement in the interest of transparency and protection of the integrity of the planning process. There are 2 members, Councillors Cooper and Patrick, who are not on the committee, but who have indicated that they wish to observe or speak, and they have been invited to join electronically. They'll be observing or participating in a way specified by the Chair, and otherwise they are separate to the committee. Thank you.
Right, we'll move on then. Item 7, this is the application for a definitive map and modification order at 60 Wolfstones Heights Farm, Netherthong.
Thank you, Chair. Just bear with me while I share my screen, which should be showing a map of the route in question. Good afternoon. My name is Phil Champion. For those who don't know me, I'm one of the Council's definitive map officers. My remit is to manage the legal record of public rights of way, known as the Definitive Map and Statement, held under Section 53 of the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981. The Definitive Map and Statement is the legal record of public footpaths, bridleways, restricted byways and byways open to all traffic. The duty includes the investigation and determination of formal applications for definitive map modification orders and the making of such orders to modify the definitive map and statement as a prerequisite in line with the evidence. This agenda item is the determination, or rather the redetermination of an application for a definitive map modification order to vary the particulars currently recorded in the current definitive map and statement for part of footpath Holmfirth 60 at Wolfstones Heights Farm, Neverfong. The width is currently recorded in the statement as approximately 1.2 metres or 4 feet. Many members might be getting a sense of deja vu about this, as the same matter was considered at the previous subcommittee meeting on 21st of April. At that meeting, members approved the making of an order in line with the officer recommendations. However, a technical issue, which was quite rightly highlighted to the council by a member of the public, meant that some people following the link from the council's website were unable to view the live stream of part of the meeting. That included the presentation to members regarding item 6 on the agenda. This is now item 7. As a result, for avoidance of doubt, it is appropriate for members to redetermine the definitive map modification order application. The officer recommendations have not changed. In short, members are asked to confirm the resolution made in April to make and support confirmation of an order. I note that there may be some members present today who were not in attendance in April, also some members of the public observing who did not see my previous presentation. There are also a number of matters that have subsequently arisen in relation to this case that should be addressed, so this presentation will unfortunately not be as succinct as it otherwise might have been, given the matter as being considered previously. The route in question is shown on the plan at item 1 in Appendix B to the report and on screen. The application is to increase the recorded width to between 3 and 4 metres, i.e. the full width between physical boundaries, such as walls or fences, that currently exist or had previously existed. The part of footpath Holmfirth 60 in question commences at Wolfstones Road at point A on the plan and follows a surface driveway in an easterly direction towards Wolfstones Heights Farm. After passing the house and the domestic curtilage, the route continues as a grass-surfaced, generally enclosed track to a stile at point E. Historically, the route has been an enclosed farm access road from point A to point B, being shown in essentially the same form on all maps since at least the 1820s. The route historically then continued as a field edge footpath from point B to point E, where it passes over a wall continuing towards Neverfong. More recently, section B to E has become an enclosed track leading to fields. B to D is shown in this manner in a map from the early 1960s, with D to E being enclosed by at least 2000, if not much earlier. B to E is largely bounded on the southern side by post and rail fencing and to the north side by old dry stone walling, some of which has been removed in recent years. Footpath 60, Holmfirth 60, was recorded in the first definitive map and statement developed from the early 1950s by the West Riding County Council as being approximately 4 feet wide along its whole length. Notwithstanding that part of the route, i.e. the section A to B, clearly ran along a farm access road or a driveway used by vehicles and of greater physical width than 4 feet. When the West Yorkshire Metropolitan County Council definitive map and statement was published in 1985, the width was again recorded at approximately 4 feet, along with a metric equivalent of approximately 1.2 metres. Around 6th of September 2020, fencing was erected within the driveway between A and A3 on the plan. This reduced the part available for use by the public to a strip approximately 1.2 metres wide along the north side of the driveway. That action is considered to have brought any unrecorded right over the greater width into question. The existence of a public footpath along the route in general is not itself in doubt. The dispute principally relates to the actual width and exact position of the public right-of-way. The fencing that narrowed the usable width was subsequently removed and was not in situ when the site was visited by officers in April 2021. Part of the length of path 60 in question has also been proposed to be diverted. The affected length being from point A at Wolfstones Road to approximately point C. For avoidance of doubt, the matter that's before members today is not that diversion proposed by the landowner, but a totally separate application submitted on behalf of Peak and Northern Footpath Society to correct the legal record of an existing public footpath to include a greater width than that currently recorded for a length of footpath home for 60. That part of the route where the width is in dispute might end up being diverted, but it does not affect the council's statutory duty regarding the definitive map and statement. In January 2020, this subcommittee declined an application made on behalf of the landowner for a diversion order under section 257 of the Town and Country Planning Act. An application was subsequently made by the landowner to the Secretary of State for Transport for a similar order under section 247 of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990. The Secretary of State for Transport has made and published a draft diversion order. The Strategic Planning Committee formally resolved that the Council should object to the making of such an order. As a result, a virtual public inquiry is to be held in August 2021. The actual legal width of the way proposed to be diverted will clearly be a material consideration to be taken into account by the appointed inspector when assessing the merits of the proposed diversion. In light of this, investigation of this DMMO application was prioritised over other cases. The council officer who's been handling matters relating to the proposed diversion was not involved in the investigation of the definitive map modification order application. As the matter of the actual width of the public right-of-way that is proposed to be diverted is in dispute, the council requested the virtual public inquiry to be delayed until the question of width had been resolved. However, after consulting with other interested parties, the Department for Transport declined that request, and the virtual public inquiry is scheduled to commence on 24th of August as planned. Given the short length of time before the public inquiry, it's requested that the definitive map modification order application is determined today and the decision is not deferred to a future meeting. If a definitive map modification order is made, as per officer recommendations, there may be sufficient time for making and advertising of an order and a statutory 6-week period during which objections or representations may be made prior to the start of the inquiry into the draft diversion order. Any deferment would mean any deferment would mean if the making of a DMMO is ultimately approved, those parts of the process would not be concluded prior to the commencement of the public inquiry. I now move on to a letter that was sent by agent for the applicant for the diversion, Noel Scanlon, to the monitoring officer, sent on June the 1st, raising various issues, but in particular in relation to this application, he questioned the validity of officers' treatment and interpretation of certain items of evidence and the conclusions that he claimed had been drawn. He demanded that the report to this committee be withdrawn. Officers do not Officers do not consider that the letter provides any additional evidence regarding the route in question, so it has not been included with the report to this committee. Mr. Scanlon takes issue in particular with officers' interpretation of an internal West Riding County Council memo from 1954, written during the process of developing the first definitive map and statement. The memo proposed reductions in WIPs that were to be recorded in an apparent attempt to reduce maintenance liabilities. A partially redacted copy of that memo was included in evidence by the applicant. An unredacted copy is included at item 13 in Appendix D to the report. This item of evidence is considered in detail in the discussion of evidence document at item 1 in Appendix A to the report, at paragraphs 1.35 to 1.41. with initial conclusions regarding this found at paragraph 1.4 in the discussion document. In the view of officers, the document referred to is supportive in this particular case, and when considered alongside all other available evidence, of a conclusion that the width of part of footpath Holmfirth 60 is more likely than not to have been under-recorded in the statement accompanying the first definitive map, and by extension in the current statement. This item of evidence has been accorded some positive weight in the current case, though perhaps less weight than Mr. Scanlon may believe. The matter before members today is simply the actual width of part of footpath Holmfirth 60. It is not necessary or appropriate to consider the potential significance of the 1954 memo or any other document and weight that should be accorded to it in relation to the width of any other routes recorded in the definitive map and statement. In the view of officers, evidence has been discovered that weakens the reliance that may be placed on the width of Holmfirth 60 as recorded in the statements accompanying the definitive map of 1952 and the current definitive map of 1985, particularly in respect of section AB. However, the West Riding memo is not the only item of evidence taken into consideration. There is also modern user evidence that would lead officers to make the same recommendations regarding modification of the current definitive map and statement. Officers have carefully reconsidered their interpretation of the significance of this document in relation to this case and all other evidence in light of Mr. Scanlon's letter. Although Mr. Scanlon does not appear to be of the same opinion as officers about some of the evidence, no additional evidence itself has been submitted that would cause officers to change recommendations. There is no persuasive reason why this application should not be determined today. Moving on to other evidence, the definitive map modification order application was supported by 14 user evidence forms describing use by the public since the 1960s of greater widths than currently recorded in the statement, typically 3 to 4 metres or similar widths in feet. This is consistent with the full width between physical boundaries, i.e. walls or fences, which varied slightly along the length of the route. The user evidence forms include evidence regarding the presence or absence of stiles, gates or other structures during the period of claimed use. The application was also accompanied by a limited quantity of documentary evidence, including an extract from the Neverfong enclosure map of 1826 and the walking schedule prepared as part of the original survey of public rights of way carried out in the 1950s under the National Parks and Access to the Countryside Act. Also included was a copy of a notice served on the council by Peak and Northern Footpath Society in December 2018 under section 130A of the Highways Act 1980 in respect of an obstruction, which is electric gates at point A, which have been observed to close automatically at dusk. The applicant also supplied copies of other documents, included a redacted copy of the 1954 memo previously referred to, as well as correspondence between various interested parties about the electric gates in the period of 2018 to 2020, and a letter to the parish council from 2000. Officers have also considered other documentary evidence, including various maps, documents relating to the development, review of the definitive map, and available photographs and aerial photographs taken between 2000 and 2020. We carried out an informal consultation exercise in November and December 2020. That resulted in the receipt of additional evidence from people who were in support of and in opposition to the claim. Several people who opposed the application asserted that the greater width of the route had not been used by the public as had been claimed, or had not been available for such use during the due to the presence of various things stored or deposits placed at various times along the line of the route, particularly on its southern side. This included building materials, scaffolding and vehicles on the driveway from point A, and vehicles, trailers and farming equipment along the continuation to point E. Evidence was also received regarding the presence or absence of various structures, such as gates and stiles, including electric gates, a bypass stile alongside the electric gates at point A, and structures in the vicinity of point B. It was claimed by objectors that a 1.2 metre wide strip along the northernmost side was always available, but the southernmost side was not. These accounts have not been generally supported by the available photographic evidence, photographs taken since 2000, including aerial photographs, and by user evidence, which suggests the whole width has generally been available and used. It is evident that some building works have taken place, particularly the reconstruction following a fire of part of the house abutting the southern side of the driveway. That might have temporarily impacted on the use of the full width of the driveway somewhere in the period of 2014 to 17. However, such building work would not have constituted an interruption of enjoyment and would not have been with the intention of preventing the acquisition of public rights over the whole width of the route. When I visited the site prior to the previous subcommittee meeting in April, I noted that a mobile catering trailer and a silage or haylage bale had been positioned on the southern side of the route near point B1. However, no photographs or aerial photographs taken since 2000 showed any such items being stored on the route. A detailed analysis of all the evidence discovered is found in the discussion of evidence document at item 1 in Appendix A to the published report. Appendix A also includes summaries of significant aspects of the user evidence and additional comments and evidence received in response to the consultation. Moving on to the legal requirements, Section 56 of the 1981 Act provides that a definitive map and statement shall be conclusive evidence as to the particulars contained therein. Where the map is conclusive evidence, as at any date of the existence of a highway, any particulars contained in the statement as to the position or width thereof shall be conclusive evidence as to the position or width thereof at that date, and any particulars so contained as to limitations or conditions affecting the public right-of-way shall be conclusive evidence that at the said date the said right was subject to those limitations or conditions, but without prejudice to any question whether the right was subject to any other limitations or conditions at that date. The courts have accepted that the discovery of new evidence that suggests the actual width may be other than that recorded in the statement could be considered an evidential event that would trigger the council's duty to make an order to modify the legal record. The discovery of internal correspondence regarding a policy of the county council of reducing recorded widths in an attempt to reduce liabilities would be considered the discovery of evidence for this purpose. But, as stated previously, in this case there is also other new evidence, particularly evidence of use, that has been taken into consideration. There is no doubt as to the existence at the relevant date of the current definitive map and statement, 22nd of April 1985, of a public footpath of a width of approximately 1.2 metres or 4 feet within the general corridor depicted by the line marked on the definitive map. The public right-of-way was recorded subject to various limitations and conditions described in the statement. This does not preclude the actual width of the public right-of-way being of greater width than 1.2 metres or 4 feet by 1985, or of greater width at the relevant date of the first definitive map and statement in September 1952. It's also possible, even if the evidence shows that the public's rights were historically contained to a width of 1.2 metres, public rights may have been dedicated over a greater width by virtue of presumed dedication under Section 31 of the Highways Act 1980. That is, use of a way by the public as of right for a full period of 20 years, or through dedication of a public right-of-way under common law. The 20-year period to be considered is from September 2000 to September 2020, when part of the width of the driveway was fenced off. Attention must also be given to limitations and conditions, e.g. gates and styles, etc., depicted in the definitive map and statement. If structures have been absent over a qualifying period, a public right-of-way might have been dedicated or rededicated without such limitations. Should public rights have come into existence over a greater width than approximately 1.2 metres, any public right-of-way might have been subject to other limitations. if a public right-of-way runs between walls or fences, there is also a legal presumption that the whole area between these has been dedicated to the public, provided the fences were laid out with reference to the highway. Members are asked to consider the report, the available evidence for and against the application, to vary the recorded particulars, along with the detailed discussion of evidence found in Appendix A to the report, and decide what, if any, order to make. The Council should consider the available evidence and, by order, make such modifications to the definitive map and statement as appear to them to be requisite in consequence of the occurrence of any of several events described in Section 53(3) of the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981. Members must consider whether or not the evidence shows, on balance, that at the relevant dates, Path 60 was of a greater width than approximately 1.2 metres or 4 feet. Members should also consider whether or not a public right-of-way has been dedicated over a greater width than 1.2 metres or 4 feet. That may be through presumed dedication under Section 31 or through dedication at common law, along with acceptance by the public. Members are also requested to consider whether there has been dedication or rededication of a public right-of-way without various limitations or conditions currently described in the statement and indicated on the map. Matters such as privacy and security, the merits of any potential diversion, or the professional or social standing of any owners or occupiers are not relevant to the question of the width of Path 60 or the existence of a public right-of-way. These are not matters to be taken into consideration. Members are advised that if a definitive map modification order is made that then attracts objections which are not subsequently withdrawn, the Council will be obliged to forward the opposed order to the Secretary of State for determination. However, the likelihood or otherwise of an order attracting opposition should form no part of the decision. Moving to conclusions regarding the evidence. Detailed conclusions are found in the discussion of evidence, particularly at paragraphs 3.1 to 3.22. In light of the requirements described earlier, and in accordance with these conclusions, it is considered that the evidence is sufficient to conclude that part of public footpath Holmfirth 60, shown on A to E on the plan, is of greater width than the approximate 1.2 metres or 4 feet recorded in the statement accompanying the current definitive map, or the approximate width of 4 feet described in the statement accompanying the first definitive map. Further, that there is sufficient evidence to conclude, on balance of probabilities, a public right-of-way on foot with a width of 3 to 4 metres between points A and E has been deemed to have been dedicated under Section 31 of the Highways Act 1980, or dedicated at common law, subject only to limitations of a 1.2 metre gap alongside a gate at point B. Officers recommend that members choose option 1 at paragraph 2.15 in the report. The Council should make a definitive map modification order to vary the particulars recorded in the map and statement in respect of the recorded width, with the addition and removal from the statement of various limitations as described at paragraph 2.15 in the report. I.e., an order should be made to vary particulars for footpath Holmfirth 60 to record a width for length AE, as shown on the plan at item 1 in Appendix B to the detailed report, varying between 3 and 4 metres between physical boundaries, with removal of reference to 2 stiles at points B and C and the wicket gate at point D, and inclusion as a limitation of a 1.2 metre gap alongside a gate at point B. Officers also recommend that should the order be opposed and the matter referred to the Secretary of State, the Council should actively support the confirmation of the order at any public inquiry or hearing. You'll be pleased to know that's the end of my presentation.
Right, then are we
Ready for speakers?
we're ready for the speakers then, and we'll start with
Noel Scanlon.
Mr. Noel Scanlon.
Yeah.
Are we,
He's coming through.
you're going to ring him through, yeah. Mr. Scanlon. You have 3 minutes, if you're no doubt aware of that. But when we get to the final 30 seconds, I'll give you a 30-second warning and you'll be cut off. Thank you.
Paragraph 2 of Schedule 14 of the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981 requires that the applicant must notify every landowner and occupier of land to which the application relates. The coordinates and grid references, and therefore the plan used, as you've seen, appears to cover land not belonging to Mr. Butterfield or any members of his family. We've tried to bring this to Mr. Champion's attention before. In order to assist officers, this appears to relate to land owned by a Mr. Roebuck of Brownhill Farm under a different registered title. More specifically, this is the area of land around where the stile is at Point E. Mr. Roebuck knows nothing about this application. It's not our job to tell him, it's not even the council's job, it's the applicant's job, but it's the council has to be satisfied that the legal requirement has been complied with. It hasn't, therefore the council is now aware that this application is at present legally defective. What does that mean? Well, in a nutshell, that means that the council is at present, meaning today, unable to lawfully progress this application until that defect is rectified. Obviously, this can't be done today. Now, when that procedural defect is rectified, this may well return to a future subcommittee. So let's deal with a very important point with very profound implications going way beyond anything to do with with the Peak and Northern Footpath Society's application here. Item D13 is referred to in the officer reporting as the West Riding Memo from 1954, as Mr. Champion has identified in his long presentation to you. Mr. Champion talks about the weight to be given to this, which, by the way, is not evident in his reporting. But to cut a long legal story short, any weight or any credence whatsoever that you as a committee give to this West Riding Memo in your deliberations, that means any at all, even a modicum, means that you are opening the floodgates to any footpath in the borough being challenged. That means it's open season against any prow. That is a reality. By allowing this, you are facilitating a land grab committee. At the same time, you're opening the council to an incalculable amount of compensation from affected landowners who have historically relied on local searches when buying properties, and that may well apply to some of you directly. You may find this objectionable. I appreciate
30 seconds.
You may find this objectionable. I appreciate how far-fetched it sounds, but it is anything but. This is not an exaggeration. You may not like what I'm saying, but I can assure you of the accuracy of this. Before this returns to committee in the future, if indeed it does, I would strongly suggest that you challenge your monitoring officer, because you appear to be not advised of the full extent of the implications here, which are profound for the council and go way beyond this.
Thank you, Mr. Scanlon. Your 3 minutes is up. Thank you. Greg Cropper, yes.
Hi. Hello.
Hi, is that Mr. Cropper? Yeah, hi. Right, yeah, I'm well, thank you. You're through to the Huddersfield Planning Subcommittee. I'm just going to transfer you across to the chair, who will invite you to address the committee. And as you know, you'll have 3 minutes. So just bear with me whilst I do that.
Right.
Hello, Mr. Cropper. Can you hear me?
I can indeed.
Yes. Well, I think you're familiar with this. You've got 3 minutes, and when we get to the last 30 seconds, I will give you the warning, and then you will be cut off. Thank you very much.
Ready? There you go. Thank you. Good afternoon, committee. My name's Greg Cropper. I'm a local resident. I used to sit on the Hope Valley Land Charity and on the council. I've been involved in the footpaths myself. I've been using this footpath regularly for 30 years, and I can categorically say that the land on the right-hand side as you go down is not a footpath, never has been, never will be, as far as I'm concerned. The footpath is a strip of land which is 4 foot wide. That's the case going all the way down to Mr. Roebuck's farm at the bottom. Historically, even now, today, there are things that are parked on the right-hand side of that driveway, not footpath. We've used it over the period of time, and we have built a wall, as you'll have noticed, And during that time, I blocked off half of the driveway. Never was I challenged at all, because I always made sure categorically that the footpath was open, even though the driveway was half closed. Never has the illegitimate footpath been, to my knowledge, blocked over the last 30 years that I've been using it. This seems to be an attempt, as I think we all know, to muddy the waters with the rerouting of a footpath. As far as I'm concerned, as it stands on its own, it has no validity whatsoever. I may or may not have a different opinion on the validity of the footpath rerouting. Moreover, my concern is that if you are to approve this, then any driveway that has a footpath running along it, and I have one in Upper Thong, is then liable to be opened up to the full width, and that would cause me an awful lot of problems myself and an awful lot of people locally. So if you set the precedent today, then my concern is that you're going to have an awful lot of flack coming back at you. The application is without validity, and there's no positive gain for walkers at all. It's a personal attack on the owner, a vexatious attempt to stifle a diversion application, and I don't really think it has any value at all. Interestingly, the diversion of the footpath has got more supporters than objectors. So I ask you, please reject this, and moreover, let's just get on with our lives and enjoy ourselves. Thank you for listening, and stay safe. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Hello? Councillor Patrick? Can you hear me? Deathly silence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you ready to speak?
I am, yes.
You know your 5 minutes, being a ward councillor. Fire away. Thank you.
Thank you. This is the latest action by the council in what has become a saga that started out as a simple application to divert a public footpath. Any landowner is entitled in law to make an application to divert a footpath, and prior to this, the landowner in question never got into any trouble with the council over the footpath. This committee opposed the footpath diversion, as you know, and we now wait for a final decision to be made by the Secretary of State. The application before committee today to increase the width of the same path has no bearing on the decision by the Secretary of State, and there is no reason to rush this through. It would have been much better to wait for the Secretary of State's decision, which is due in August. This all came about because the landowner put up a safety fence on the path whilst he made some repairs to the adjoining high wall. The full width of the track was not available, but the path was not obstructed. People could still walk it safely. Once the work was completed, the fence was taken down. Now committee is being asked to increase the width of the footpath to occupy the whole width of the track. The evidence you are given is a West Riding memo from 1954. This would have been written at the time information was being collected to create the definitive map, which is the legal document that identifies the status of the paths, their width, route, and structure set upon them. This memo is a conversation about the width of a footpath where it follows a track. There are lots and lots of examples of footpaths following tracks in Kirklees and indeed in other parts of West Yorkshire, where the width of the track is much wider than the width of the footpath. The suggestion is that the officers went for a shorter path width because they were concerned about future maintenance costs. They concluded it would appear that the path didn't need to be as wide as the track. They would have done this if this applies for 60, it'll apply for every single path that follows a track in West Yorkshire. So there'll be councils right across West Yorkshire watching this decision because it's going to affect every single one. If you accept this evidence or give weight to this evidence, then it applies to all the paths on tracks in Kirklees, and we can expect more applications. you'll also have to increase the budget for maintenance, because instead of a path 3 foot wide, you'll be maintaining a path 6 foot wide or 8 foot wide on these tracks all over Kirklees once these applications come in. I am told, though, in this batch of memos in the archives from the West Riding days, that there are also memos that cast doubt on the processes followed by West Riding, to the extent that some of the paths in Kirklees may well have to be deleted. So if we're going to look at this information, this evidence from the West Riding archives, then perhaps it's time that a full review was undertaken of their validity. My advice would be to give little or no weight to the memos between West Riding staff and to refuse the application. If you don't feel you can refuse it, then at least defer it until after the decision has been made by the Secretary of State in connection with the diversion application. If you approve this, a separate appeal can be made to the Secretary of State and won't be heard for 18 months at least. So the diversion decision will be made first on the basis of the existing width. As a former PROW officer, having listened to the evidence, I expect
30 seconds.
I would expect the Secretary of State to overturn any approval by this committee today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Phil Champion.
Oh, Phil. Yes. Phil wished to come in here. Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I feel I should just come back on the subject of the application for the definitive modification order that was made, and the issues of service of notice. Notice was served by the applicant on the owners and occupiers of Wolfstones Heights Farm and adjacent property Wolfstones Heights, which is actually owned by the same person. He is correct in saying that no notice was served on Mr. Roebuck, who owns land beyond Point E. However, I could see no reason to do so on the grounds that is other land not affected by the application. Mr. Scanlon had mentioned that he had identified a deficiency in the application, but had declined to provide any details about that. We could see no deficiency. However, we did request that the applicant serve notice of the application on the land, which I understand he did. But in any case, the application, an application for a definitive map modification order is only sort of a vessel for bringing forward evidence. The council has a standalone duty to keep the map and statement under review and make orders in line with the discovery of evidence. So even if there was no application in this case, we would still potentially be in the same position today. We could still be bringing a report to committee and the committee resolving to make an order.
Thank you for that. Right, members, we've heard it all before. We've had to go through it again. I don't know if there's anybody who wishes to make any further comments, but I'm prepared to move officer's recommendation. Seconded.
Yeah, I'm prepared to second that.
All those in favour, please show. Oh, it goes to the vote, yes.
Right, just to confirm, Chair, we'll be voting on the officer recommendation as outlined in the submitted report. So I'll go around one by one and obviously ask for your vote.
Against?
For.
For.
4.
4.
Nick, you're right to start your presentation, please.
Yes, thank you. Can you just confirm you can hear me and see the slides? I'm not hearing a response.
Okay, Nick, can you, sorry, we've just got a technical query. Can you just hold for one moment, please? Thank you.
Of course, thank you.
Right, sorry, Nick. Right, this is just to clarify the vote that was taken for item 7. The vote was carried. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 members voted for officer recommendation and 1 against. Okay, Nick, you can carry on now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, but can I do again just confirm, can you see my slides and hear me?
Yep, it's fine, Nick. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you very much. Good day, members. This site is just north of Manchester Road to the west of Marsden. The application seeks the change of use and refurbishment of existing buildings to form an outdoor learning facility. It would also have ancillary overnight accommodation. Access would be taken down a third-party road from Manchester Road. The private road also connects up to Waters Road that runs along the north. The application has been brought to committee due to the level of public representation. In total, 282 representations have been received. Approximately 80% of those are in support of the application, with the remaining 20 being in objection. Just to go over the site hosts 2 modern agricultural buildings, which can be seen here. While there is 2 separate roofs, this is one building and there is another one located here. There is loose equipment, including storage containers, which can just be seen here around the site. The land to the front is surfaced in crushed stone, which has naturalized, so there is crushed stone under here as a surface. These images show the access road. The one on the left shows the access from Manchester Road. So Manchester Road's just off camera here above, and the site can just be seen to the left. The purpose of this is just to show the arrangement of the road. The image on the right is from Waters Road. So Waters Road Junction is just to my rear. Again, the site can be seen just here. The existing buildings would be converted. The smaller building, this on the bottom of the plans, would be sleeping accommodation for up to 32 students and 8 adults, acting as chaperones. The larger building would include eating facilities, classrooms and ancillary rooms for associated activities. The site is intended to educate children on outdoor pursuits and the natural environment. Planned example activities include nature study courses, survival skills, conservation work, cycle lessons and river studies. To assist in the buildings retaining their agricultural appearance, a shutter system is proposed to enable the building to be hidden, the windows to be hidden when not in use. This plan just gives an indication of this effect, and I'll just zoom in there. So, yeah. The report before members outlines officers' full assessment of the proposal. In summary, the site is within the Greenbelt where development is restricted. Exemptions to this restriction include proposals which reuse existing buildings that are both permanent and substantial in nature. The applicant has provided structural reports to demonstrate that these buildings are permanent and substantial, which officers accept. However, developments must also not harm the openness of the Greenbelt. This includes just not the design and the physical appearance, but associated activities. First, considering design, the proposed physical works would retain an agricultural characteristic. New window openings are kept to a minimal, and the ability to shutter them is welcomed. Externally, the proposal includes removing various items from around the site, such as a storage container, which would declutter it and is also welcomed. Car parking is to be upon the existing crushed stone area. Parking bays are not to be marked out to help retain the openness. For associated activity, it is proposed to limit students to 32 at a time, aged 16 and under, via condition. This would prevent an over-intensification of use. While the development will lead to the students being in the greenbelt as they undertake the previously mentioned activities, with a limit of 32, their presence is not in itself considered detrimental to openness. On vehicle movements to and from a site, students will arrive via minibus, limiting vehicle activity. Other vehicle movements, such as staff and deliveries, have been considered. Cumulatively, the proposed use is not anticipated to result in notable level of traffic which would harm the openness of the greenbelt. Furthermore, the development is not considered contradictory to the purposes of including land within the greenbelt. The principle of development within a greenbelt is therefore considered to be acceptable. The proposal would also provide educational health benefits for attendees. Progressing to highways, as stated, the proposal is not anticipated to generate a notable level of traffic. The site will be accessed via an existing private road. While open to two-way traffic, the private road is mostly single width. At present, informal passing places and clear lines of view along its length aid in the management of vehicles. The access onto Manchester Road is well established with acceptable visibility, and adequate parking can be accommodated within the existing surfaced area. There are therefore no highway concerns. For ecology, the site is adjacent to the South Pennine Moors, which benefit from ecological protections. A habitat regulations assessment screening opinion was required and undertaken by ecological officers. This concluded no likely significant effects on the South Pennine Moors, and Natural England have not opposed the development. The application has demonstrated that there will be no material harm to local ecology, and enhancements to secure a net gain in local ecology are to be secured via condition. Other material planning considerations, including trees, drainage and neighbouring amenity, have been considered and addressed within the report. Approximately 60 objections have been received alongside the supporting representations. Officers consider these representations to be addressed within the report. Officers therefore recommend approval subject to the given conditions, with nothing further to add, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, members, I do apologise, but apparently there has been a technical issue with the vote that we took for item 7. So what I'm going to do is, rather than go round again, I'm just going to read it out, the vote as we did it, and obviously just let me know if it's any different. So this is just to reconfirm the vote that was taken for item 7, the public right of way, and it was voted for the officer recommendation as outlined in the report. Councillor Bellamy voted against. Paul Davis counted for. Councillor Homewood voted for. Councillor McGuinn for. Councillor Sarwar for. Councillor Smith for. Councillor Sokol for. Councillor Uller for. Councillor Uppel for. And Councillor Lyons for. So that's 9 members of the committee voted for officer recommendation, 1 against, and that means the officer recommendation was approved. Is that correct, committee? Do we have any queries in relation to that? Fine, thank you very much. Do apologise that we've had to do that again. Yeah, so we've got the first speaker, Chair, which is Caroline Tamworth, which I'll ring in. Okay.
Hello, Caroline. Yes, you've 3 minutes, as the clerk has just said, but after 2.5 minutes, 30 seconds, I will give you 30 seconds. That's if you need all that time, but if you try to go beyond that, you will be cut off. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm seeking strong objection to the proposal on behalf of Mr. and Mrs. Fox, who live at the nearby Haygreen House. The proposal will result in unacceptable change and intensification to the use of agricultural buildings and land within the heart of the Greenbelt. Whilst the applicant has argued that there will be no increase in the built volume on the site, the increase in the levels of activity will in themselves bring about a distinct and inappropriate change to the character and appearance of the area. Furthermore, the applicant does not have legal control over the proposed access arrangements. Mr and Mrs Fox own the full length of the access road leading from Manchester Road to the junction where it meets Waters Road. The application has therefore been considered by the Council on the basis of a vehicular access that is not within the control of the applicant. The proposed development simply cannot be lawfully accessed. Mr and Mrs Fox's title deeds clearly show that the access road is within their ownership and state that the applicant only has a right of access along a short section of the driveway in one direction from Waters Road and solely for the purposes of serving the agricultural buildings and adjacent land. The applicant has no right of access at all leading from Manchester Road. Whilst it's acknowledged that the Council does not consider private legal matters during the planning application process, we have stressed several times that it's essential that the highway implications of the proposal are correctly assessed based solely upon a potential access from Waters Road, which itself is unsuitable to cater for the additional traffic that would be generated. However, this does not appear to have happened, which is concerning. At present, the applicant accesses the site from Waters Road infrequently, and therefore the driveway is almost solely used by Mr and Mrs Fox and visitors for their family home. The previous hotel and restaurant use, along with any traffic associated with this, have long gone and will not return, so for the applicant to state that there be a reduction in traffic as a result of the proposal is absurd. The proposal has the potential to generate an unacceptable level of vehicle movements of a frequency and type that will have an adverse impact on highway safety. Whilst Mr and Mrs Fox are of the firm opinion that the application should be refused for the reasons mentioned, if members were to be mindful to approve the application, then it's considered absolutely essential that a condition be attached to that approval that stipulates that the proposed development can only be carried out if lawful and authorised access from Manchester Road is available and can be demonstrated. Such a condition has already been suggested in previous correspondence with the planning officer, but has not been included at this stage, and I would strongly urge members to add one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've got James Roberts.
Welcome, Mr Roberts. You've got 3 minutes. If you go beyond 3 minutes, I'll obviously cut you off, but I will give you the 30-second countdown.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee for the opportunity to speak. The proposed development would provide an educational facility and overnight accommodation for groups of children aimed at introducing them to outdoor pursuits and wildlife. The scheme has the potential to significantly enhance these children's understanding of the natural world, allow them to experience the countryside, and to engage in activities which boost mental and physical health. The proposed overnight accommodation also encourages children to develop skills related to independence. The proposed development would not be open to general members of the public and would only be used by pre-booked educational groups. The proposal would therefore have no adverse impact on the viability of any existing business within Marsden. The committee report before members provides a detailed and thorough explanation of the planning merits of the case. However, I would like to provide a brief commentary on some of the key issues. The proposal comprises the reuse of 2 existing buildings within the Greenbelt, and the scheme has been carefully designed to ensure that it would not have a harmful impact on openness. The proposal provides the opportunity to tidy up the site, including the removal of storage containers, introduce comprehensive landscaping, and generally enhance the rural character of the site. The proposal would not therefore comprise an inappropriate form of development within the Greenbelt. The application site is located a significant distance from any neighbouring property, and the use would not generate significant levels of noise or disturbance. The applicant has provided detailed ecological reports which demonstrate that the scheme would result in major ecological benefits. The officer report also makes it clear that there will be no unacceptable impacts in relation to trees, crime prevention, drainage, the historic environment, air quality or climate change. The applicant is happy to accept all conditions suggested by officers and would like to work with the council in a positive fashion to ensure a high standard of development. The applicant is also happy to accept any requests put forward by this committee. The scheme would deliver a high-quality educational facility for a wide range of users. It would result in inward investment into the local area, would allow for job
30 seconds.
boost economic growth and result in significant enhancements at the site. The committee report sets out the detailed planning merits of the case. When the scheme is considered against current policy and all of the material considerations, it is considered clear that the balance is weighted heavily in favour of the grant of permission. Members are therefore respectfully urged to accept the recommendation of their expert officer and to grant permission for this.
Thank you. Your time is up. Thank you.
We have Lee Ogden.
Hello, Lee, you've 3 minutes. And when we get down to the last 30 seconds, I'll say 30 seconds, then you'll need to finish or I'll cut you off. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the applicants. Firstly, I would like to point out that there are no objections to the proposed development from Kirklees Council's highways officers. Indeed, the officers have confirmed that following negotiations as part of the planning process, the proposal demonstrates suitable access and would not harm the safe and efficient operation of the highway in accordance with the policy LP21. The most convenient access route to the site is via Manchester Road, which has operated safely for many years with no reported injury accidents within the past 5 years. The junction onto Manchester Road contains suitable geometry that can easily accommodate a large refuse vehicle and any construction vehicles associated with the conversion phase of the 2 existing buildings. The highways officer has agreed that suitable visibility displays at the junction can be provided. Waters Road also provides suitable geometry, having regard to the site utilising up to 4 minibuses, and with a carriageway width generally between 4.5 to 6 metres, allows for a minibus to pass an opposing car. There are some narrow sections with limited forward visibility, but these sections of road are widely accepted to contribute to low traffic speeds and do not necessarily cause a road safety problem. As with the Manchester Road access, Waters Road has an excellent road safety record and provides a suitable access for existing and proposed users with no evidence to suggest otherwise. Indeed, both Waters Road and Manchester Road are widely used by local people. The operators of the site would use 12-seater minibuses for collecting employees, teachers and school children. These vehicles are relatively small and the development would merely generate between 4 and 6 two-way movements per day between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. and would not impact traffic movements along the local network during the typical morning and evening peak hours. This level of generation is very low and is unlikely to be noticeable by other users. The low level and type of traffic generated as a result of the development would not cause harm to the existing access road and Waters Road surface, as these contain suitable bituminous surfaces that would continue to be enjoyed by all users. Due to the status of both the Manchester Road and Waters Road access points to the site, these are subject to light traffic volumes throughout the day, with low traffic speeds and
30 seconds.
Provide a safe environment for pedestrians, cyclists, horse riders and motorists. During the conversion phase of the 2 existing buildings, contractor vehicles will be properly managed, potentially limiting the times and numbers of deliveries by any HGVs, which would be agreed with the council as part of the suggested construction management plan. Given the proposed traffic and highway aspects of the development can be accommodated, I will therefore respectfully ask the committee to follow the recommendation of its officers and approve this application.
Thank you. Second to spare. Members, Councillor Uller, Councillor Bellamy. Uller.
Okay, thank you. Right, I obviously know this site really well. Seems it's in Marsden, it's in my ward. To be honest, it sounds like a really good scheme and a really good idea, and especially now they've taken the cafe out of the application, because that was a concern. I do though still have some concerns, and it is to do with the highways. I mean, I would be interested to know, have they got permission to use the private road? Because that road that goes down is a private one. It goes from Manchester Road all the way down to Waters Road. I think for minibuses to be coming on Redishire Road and Waters Road, it is narrow. Yeah, I'm not saying that you can't get two vehicles past each other. There is passing points, but it is narrow. It's not the best of roads to be bringing minibuses on. But I've also then got concerns with the top of the private road from Manchester Road. Manchester Road is an extremely fast and busy road, even though somebody's just said that it isn't, which I was a bit confused about. And it's okay saying there's been no accidents. There was one last week that completely closed the road. It was in the evening. I suspect it might have had something to do with sheep. But, you know, there is a lot of accidents up there, and that causes me a concern, and especially if it's minibuses in and out of that access. I would suggest that if you're going to come out that way, that you make it a left turn only and you go down Manchester Road and maybe not try and get across the whole carriageway. So, yeah, I'd like some confirmation on whether the private road is to be used and whether it is definitely going to have to be from Manchester Road rather than using Waters Road. And I'll just hold my thoughts there and like to listen to what everybody else has got to say.
We'll bring the officer in.
Is that me, Chair? Sorry, legal officer. I'll just address the private access point. The private access road. That's not a material consideration in planning determination. Private access roads, private rights over roads are part of land law, not planning law, and that's not to be taken into account. The highways officer can deal with other points in terms of highway safety and efficiency, but in terms of private rights, easements over a road, that's not a consideration.
Yes, Teresa, did you want to?
Through you, Chair, I think the issue was that the access is private, so it would be the applicant who's taking access from the private road. I think that was the tenor of the objection that was made. At the bottom of page 106, that's where that objection that was received in writing has been addressed. So the response is at the bottom of 106 and at the top of page 107. So anybody can apply for planning permission provided they serve notice on the owners, which has been done in this case. That doesn't mean if planning permission is granted, it would grant them the right to use that access. If there are restrictions to that, the applicant would have to obtain those rights under a separate area of law outside the scope of planning legislation. Thank you, Chair.
Are you content with the...
It just, like I said, that worries me then, because in that case they may not ever be able to use the private road, so they would have no access. So, but like I say, that's not a planning matter. But I have got concerns about access from Manchester Road onto the private road and concerns from Waters Road.
I always believe that anybody can put in a planning application for anywhere. My next door neighbour could put in a planning application for my house or my land. So, yes, thank you. Councillor Uller.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think the cafe coming out was probably one of the best things, because I think that's going to, it complicates it and confuses it, because we've been in situations before where, with all the best will in the world, these educational settings are really for education. People want additional revenue. I can understand that, and then they come back and it's the best thing since sliced bread to have a live entertainment licence and time start changes. So I'm glad that's been taken out. I don't agree with the fact that Manchester Road is not a quiet rural road. It's a very, very busy track of road to drive. I was involved in a collision there 2 years ago, a recorded one. I do think that Donna's got a point around the access, so whether if anything can be done or looked into, that would be good. In the report, we read something around the only people that will have access to this, there won't be members of the public that would have access to this. And it'd be nice just to have some clarity on how far and how wide that statement goes. Thank you.
Through you, Chair, ranking the Highway Development Management. With regards to the site access, despite the initial concerns with the submitted transport statement, I visited the site personally. The demonstrated sight lines on the plans that they provided fell short of the requirements. However, when I sat at that junction in my own vehicle, you can see right to the bend going down towards Marsden, and in excess of 200 metres coming down towards Marsden again, and the other way coming up the hill. The width of the existing access is sufficient to get two vehicles off the highway for the first 8 metres, so that removes that conflict, and then it goes down to a single track access. In addition, there's an existing right turn lane into the facility on Manchester Road, which again improves highway safety. In that respect, we have no other concerns regarding it with this proposal. Thank you.
Councillor Uppel.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to raise some issues around the access as well, but colleagues have already raised those points. The only thing I did want to mention, I think the speaker who was on the telephone, she mentioned about a condition for Manchester Road. Now, I can't remember if she said, would we potentially consider one way on Manchester Road? I couldn't quite hear her properly, so I don't know if the highways officer could hear her properly and whether they can just respond to the condition that she raised. And the only other point I wanted to make was about the National Trust. They've raised objections. They said that they didn't consider there was sufficient survey material to assess the impacts in the area around biodiversity and the ecological impact. And they said appropriate ecological assessment should be undertaken. Now, I understand we've undertaken an appraisal, but I don't know if we've been in touch with National Trust about what they consider an appropriate assessment. That's it. Thank you.
Can Nick Hurst come back on that question from Councillor Uppel? I'll put you down.
Yes, I can. Thank you, Chair. So the appropriate assessment has been undertaken. That was the habitat impact assessment that Ecology did in their screening opinion, which was undertaken, shared with Natural England, and Natural England have confirmed that that was no comment on that. They were happy. Thank you. Just to go back to what Councillor Ola was asking, there was a mention to the road and not having public element. That was in reference to the cafe being omitted. So as opposed to having random members of the public pulling in, getting a coffee, this is now simply the education facility. So it will be pre-scheduled people, other students arriving in the minibuses. So that's what that was in reference to. Thank you, Chair.
Did you want to come back, Councillor Uppel?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. You mentioned Natural England, but I was talking about the National Trust.
Yes, apologies. So,
Do you want me to come back, Chair, on this one, just in case there's a slight confusion on this? The National Trust, in their comments, were talking about Natural England and the appropriate assessment that might be undertaken. So the screening before we get to that stage is the habitat regulation assessment, which was undertaken by the council's ecologist, which concluded once the scheme was reduced that it didn't either independently or cumulatively have an impact on the special area of protection. Thus, it didn't proceed on to an appropriate assessment, which would have required reconsultation with Natural England. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Sokol, and then it's Councillor Homewood.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I just want to ask, I'm not against this application to convert these agriculture building into the educational facilities for young children. But my concern is there any demand for this facility from school children or local area? Are there any commitment applicant got from local school? They will use this facility for their children? Are there any security measure for those children who use this building, especially for accommodation at night time? 32 children plus 8 adults there. It's nothing in the report. There will be the security measure there. Last one, I want to know what would happen if applicant fail to attract these children from either local area or far away from other schools, because I suspect applicant might use this scheme to convert those two agriculture building into their business. Yeah, thank you, Chair.
This sounds a bit imponderable to me, but I can't give you a straight answer on that. I don't know if we can get anything further from our officer. If he has any information that he could feed back on those questions.
I'm just waiting for the case officer to come back to me on that.
Can ask Councillor Homewood in between then, rather than waste time.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've listened to, obviously read the report and listened to what's been said. Personally, I don't see any objection to this proposal. I think it's a good proposal for the use of this. I heard what people said about highways, but I'm struggling a bit on that, given that so much action has been taken to reduce the amount of vehicles, and presumably the current use as an agricultural building would require access, probably for vehicles less easy to exit a junction. So I'm not sure that the change of use here is specifically detrimental to the highway, to be honest, and given what the highways officers said about the sight lines, etc. Obviously, I'm sure it's never easy getting onto a busy road, but I don't see any particular objection from that point of view. So I'd be happy to move the officer recommendation to approve the application.
Further add to that, Manchester Road is a long road, and is that particular spot a bad spot? Sokol,
Through you, Chair. Nick's ready to respond now. Thank you.
Through you, Chair. Thank you very much for that. So the application has been reviewed by the Police Architectural Liaison Officer, who has made several recommendations for security measures which can be incorporated, and these are principally to do with door standards and locks. The only one that might be a potential issue is their recommendation for lighting. For ecological and greenbelt reasons, we wouldn't want the extent of lighting that the Police Architectural Liaison Officer is after. However, we are going to there is a condition recommended for a lighting strategy, which we can work on as officers from a greenbelt perspective, ecology and the Police Architectural Liaison Officer to ensure that as much as possible those three considerations are balanced. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Chair. Following up from Councillor Homewood, really, I think looking at the photographs and based on the highways report, certainly I haven't got any major concerns around the highways and the sight lines. I think the initiative itself is excellent. There's no doubt this would be of really great benefit to some of our children within Kirklees and perhaps outside of Kirklees. And I think, as we know, many children have difficulties in learning within the classroom environment, and this would give them an opportunity for some active learning. So from that perspective, I think great. I understand Councillor Sokol's concerns around security, but if this is, as it says, going to be used by educational establishments, they will have to carry out a risk assessment. They will have to assure themselves of the appropriate DBS coverage and the various other risks. So it will be very much those establishments using this facility that will have to go through that risk assessment. So I think from that perspective, I would also feel reassured that it would be handled correctly. So I'm more than happy to second Councillor Homewood's proposal.
Councillor Bellamy.
Thank you, Chair. Like I say, I've nothing particularly against this. I'm just wondering, could we condition that the access and egress thing does go on to Manchester Road and not onto Waters Road, because that would cause a major problem if all of a sudden we've got minibuses going down and on Waters Road and on Reddishire Road. The only other thing I'd like is if somebody can stop sheep them perhaps from being on that top corner, there might be less accidents when they're coming out. But I presume that's a farmer's issue, not a planning issue. It'd be nice though, because that's what causes accidents on Manchester Road. But yeah, could that condition be added?
Through you, Chair, we have looked into that matter. Again, it's on page 106. It was a suggestion of somebody who made representations on the application, but we didn't think it would meet the 6 tests for conditions. So it was a specific request, can it be Manchester Road only? So the 6 tests for conditions include being reasonable or enforceable. So we would not be able to enforce traffic just using Manchester Road. So it wouldn't meet at least one of the tests for conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favour? Up to you. I'll get used to it.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So this is the vote for the officer recommendation as outlined in the officer report.
I think I'll abstain due to the not having it.
4.
4. Abstain. 4. 4. 4.
4.
4.
That's 8 for, 2 abstentions, so the officer recommendation is approved. Members, apologies. Following some legal advice, I've been advised that because there was some technical interruption to that public right-of-way vote, despite the fact that I did read out what you voted, I'm told that for the avoidance of any doubt, to avoid any legal challenge to the decision, we will have to go through that vote one more time. So I do apologise. So we will rerun the vote. If you just bear with me 1 second.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, Councillor Sokol. We're not going to elongate this, are we?
The committee made a decision, right? Today. And we've taken the votes. We've taken twice or third time as well. We are still listening from outside. I don't know.
We've had the run around with this. We're aware of it, but we've got to see it off every time, unfortunately.
Right, so just for clarity, we are taking a vote on item 7, which is the public right-of-way item. This vote is for the officer recommendation as outlined in the officer submitted report. So we'll go around again and do the roll call.
Against.
For.
For. I think. Yeah, we're a 4. Yeah. For. 4.
For.
4.
Right, so to confirm, that's 9 members have voted for officer recommendation, 1 against, so officer recommendation for item 7, public right-of-way item, is carried.
The next application is page 111, and it's west of Lidget Street, Linley.
Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. My name is Ellie Worth and I am the case officer for this application. Outline permission is sought for residential development at land to the west of Lidget Street, Linley. The application has been brought to Huddersfield Subcommittee due to the size of the site exceeding 0.5 hectares. Here you can see the location plan, and this sets out the extent of the red line boundary. This plan shows that the site is allocated as housing within the Kirklees local plan, and the location plan below shows the constraints within the site. As you can see, the Manor House and St Stephen's Church are Grade 2 listed. Also to the west of the site is a public right-of-way, which is also adjacent to some protected trees. Here is an aerial photo of the site. To the north, directly to the north here, is Woodlands Residential Children's Home. To the west is a well-established housing estate, and to the south are allotments. Here you can see better the extent of the curtilage for the Manor House Linley and its associated parking, along with St Stephen's Church to the south east. Outline permission for residential development on the site was previously granted in 2018, in which is currently extant. No indicative plans have been provided to show the layout, nor have they been provided to show the number of houses, and therefore this would need to be assessed at a reserve matters stage. Nonetheless, here are a few photos of the site. This top photo shows the access from Lidget Street. As you can see, it forks off to the right, and that is the access for the Manor House. To get to the site and the woodlands, you would continue straight along. This second photo is taken within the site, showing an image of the access back down onto the main road. The access is separated by a stone boundary wall, and to this side is the car parking associated with the Manor House. This top photo shows the view within the site to the south. Behind the hedgerow are the allotments, and there are also areas of hard standing currently within the site due to its former use. This photo is taken looking to the west. As you can see, the former building has now been removed and the site consists of open grassland. These are the trees in which are protected, and behind is the stone wall where the public right-of-way runs. Through the gaps for the trees, you can also see the existing housing development. This photo is taken to the north of the site, and this is Woodlands Residential Children's Home. Also to the northeast, you can see the relationship between the Manor House and what that would have with the application site. These last two photos are taken from the prow, and as you can see, the site would be widely viewed from public vantage points. In terms of residential amenity, officers feel that an acceptable level can be achieved in order to protect the existing commercial uses and the future occupiers of the dwelling. Nonetheless, a noise report and attenuation measures have been requested by environmental health officers as part of any reserved matters application, as the Manor House Lindley is now in use as a bar, restaurant and wedding facility. Highways officers consider the indicative access to be acceptable, but would require it to be made up to the adoptable standard. No concerns have been raised by drainage officers or Yorkshire Water, apart from conditions being attached in the case of a drainage maintenance agreement. With regards to trees, officers are satisfied that an appropriate layout can be achieved without unduly impacting upon those that are protected to the west. Casey Ecology have also requested that a new impact assessment is submitted as part of any reserved matters application, along with a 10% net biodiversity gain. 10 representations have been received, of which 9 are in objection. The full comments, along with officer correspondence, can be found within paragraph 10.49 of the officer report. As part of this permission, officers are looking to secure a Section 106 agreement, which is likely to include 20% affordable housing, open space or an off-site contribution, education contribution, but this would be subject to the number of houses presented at a reserved matters stage, a 10% net biodiversity gain, management and maintenance of drainage infrastructure, and a contribution to sustainable transport methods. But yet again, this would be determined at a reserved matters stage once officers know more in terms of layout and the number of houses. Therefore, given the above and that the site is designated for housing within the Kirklees local plan, officers are recommending approval for the scheme subject to the Section 1 agreement. Section 106 agreement. Nothing further to add, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, we have Nick Willock.
I do. Thank you, Chair. Members, my name is Nick Willock of Robert Halstead Chartered Surveyors and Town Planners, and I am the agent for the applicant. It's nice to see you all again in the flesh. This land was previously sold by the council to my client with outline permission for residential development. The planning permission on this site is still live until November this year. In the previous planning application, the committee concluded that the site could be developed for residential use, and there was no reason to believe that the detailed issues could not be satisfactorily addressed at the reserved matters stage. Furthermore, given the site's sustainable location in the heart of Lindley, the principle of development was accepted. It's considered that there have been no relevant change in circumstances of note since the previous application was approved, other than the fact the council's allocation of the site for housing in the new plan, which gives even greater weight than previously. I would also add that whilst reference is made with regard to the Manor House Hotel and Bar, permission for residential development on this site was granted prior to the permission being granted for the hotel and bar uses. As suggested by officers, a noise report can be submitted at the reserved matters stage and any mitigation measures incorporated, but the residential permission came first here, and so a reasonable balance does need to be found, we would suggest. The applicant is content to work with officers to complete a Section 106 agreement as per the report. We would like one small clarification, if possible, it doesn't have to be today, in terms of the contribution to sustainable transport methods, which is to ask what is the number of residential units referred to in order to trigger this contribution. Other than this, I have no more to say and would politely ask members to accept the officer's recommendation in this case. Thank you.
Members. Councillor Sokol.
Are you okay? Thank you, Chair. Chair, I know that this site is in the local plan for housing. What I would like to see, as there is no indication how many dwelling would be there, because that detailed application still to come. Yeah. As I know this because I'm very regular to use this village or roads around this area. Yeah. This site is a very historic site. Yeah. And surrounded by the historic building like the church there and Lindley Clock Tower and other buildings there. If we members decide to approve this outline application today, yeah, what I would like to see, because there is no indication how many will be, I would like to see the number of houses, very minimum, yeah, well designed. Those design will be matching with the surrounding building, which I mentioned already, very historic building. And there should be enough car park spaces for those houses, because Lindley Village very busy traffic around all these streets, especially because there are hospitals there, then the Lindley Village, yeah, and the schools there. So I want to like those. My comment.
Well, Councillor Sokol, that will come under reserve.
Yeah, I know that, but officers should take into account when this application comes, when they negotiate with the applicant.
It doesn't sound to me as though you're opposed to it.
Saying, yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I have grave concerns over the location of this application for a residential development. It is sandwiched between St Stephen's Church and the ever-popular Manor House, which is a popular wedding venue, hotel, restaurant. It is not a good place for a residential development. I know it's in the local plan, I know it's been approved before, but it's a terrible location. Any additional housing on this particular site will be unwelcome, and it's only going to exacerbate the problems that we have with parking and congestion in the village and put further pressure on our already overstretched local services. The construction phase also raises significant concerns with me over safety, with the necessary access that's going to be required for heavy goods vehicles and equipment. Access will be needed from Lidgett Street, which is poor access and sees significant pedestrian footfall on that busy high street all throughout the day. I can't support this application. And it's all very well putting in conditions for Section 106. Lindley has had to endure more than its fair share of housing development over the last few years. And I've got to ask, where is the benefit of that Section 106 money been seen in Lindley? Where are the additional school places? Where are the additional surgeries for GPs? Where's the investment in the roads? I can't see how you could mitigate for the negative impacts of this site through Section 106. I cannot support this application. Thank you.
Councillor Ruppel.
Thank you, Chair. I do understand the concerns from members, and I've got family living in Lindley and they've raised similar concerns, so I do understand that. There are issues that will need to be considered further down the line, and particularly reserved matters, but overall around education, health and the rest of it, it does need to be thought out properly. But this is in the local plan, it's an outline permission, and I will I support it, so I'm in favour. So. I'm moving it, that's the word I'm looking for, I'm moving the application.
Is that seconded?
Yeah.
Seconded, Councillor Homewood. Right, Richard.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll go round and do the count. This is a vote for officer recommendation outlined in the submitted report. We've just been asked that when I call out your name, if you just wait till you don't press your button until you've actually heard your name, because the cameras have been flicking around a little bit. We'll start.
Against?
For.
For.
Against.
For. Against.
For.
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 Okay, that's 7 for, 3 against, so officer recommendation is approved.
Right then. The final one, page 131, Gledhill Farm, K Lane, Almondbury.
Okay, we'll have a meeting will be paused for 5 minutes.
5 minutes, we'll start. Sir is Stuart Howden.
Through you, Chair, Stuart's reported he's had sound problems with his computer this morning. I have his presentation, so if Stuart can go through his slides, as long as he can hear me, I can go through the presentation on his behalf. Okay, so the application seeks planning permission to convert part of an existing barn to a cafe at Gled Hill Farm, K Lane at Armonbury. The application has been brought to subcommittee at the request of Councillor Cooper, who has concerns with visibility from the access onto K Lane. First slide, please, Stuart. The site is outlined in red on the plan before members and is located on the north side of K Lane. The site, which is in the Gled Hill Farm complex, comprises a traditional U-shaped agricultural building. Within the Gled Hill Farm complex, there is the dwelling of 130 Gled Hill Farm to the west of the building and 4 agricultural buildings to the east of this building. There is a menage to the south of the building which forms part of the application site. The locality has a rural character with open countryside to the north and east of the farm complex. To the south of the farm complex are residential properties fronting K Lane. The access to the site is from K Lane and is situated between 2 residential dwellings, these being number 126 and 132 K Lane. The red line plan also includes part of the residential curtilage of number 126. The site is within the green belt. Second slide, please. This slide shows the existing building. The U-shaped livery building is 1.5 stories in height, but the first floor is only located on one arm of the building. This building is constructed from natural stone under a stone slate roof. Next slide, please. These are photos of the existing building. The left photo displays the building from the south and west. The photos to the right of the display, the east courtyard elevation and the east elevation of the building. Next slide, please. The proposed floor plans. The proposal is for the change of use of part of the livery building, this being the dashed L-shaped area, previously displayed on the site plan, to a cafe. The submitted plans show that the current courtyard area would also be used as a dining area. Externally, 4 new windows are proposed, as well as the reuse of existing openings. Next slide, please. This slide shows the proposed access and parking plan. It is proposed to widen the access into the site from K Lane, as well as widen part of the access track leading to the parking area, so as to allow for 2 vehicles to pass at the access. An existing lay-by area to the west of the site, adjacent to the access track, is proposed to be utilised as parking, and despite what the above plan on this slide displays, it is proposed to accommodate up to 15 parking spaces. Next slide, please. These are photos of the existing access. The left photo displays the access from K Lane, whilst the right photograph displays an image of the lay-by for the proposed parking area from up the access. The application follows a withdrawn application which sought permission for a larger cafe comprising the whole of the livery building, as well as the use as the menage for a 40-space car park. This previous application was withdrawn following numerous officer concerns with the scheme, which resulted from the scale of the scheme and due to the absence of technical reports to support the scheme. The revised proposal in front of members is a reduced scheme Whilst the menage is within the site plan, it is not proposed to alter this, and in the update to members, it's recommended that this is not used for parking. One of the key considerations with the application is whether the proposal preserves the openness of the green belt. No extensions are proposed to the livery building, and officers consider that the works to the livery building are relatively modest. Whilst the proposal would result in widening of the access and track, these works are considered to be relatively modest and would be largely contained between two existing residential properties. The car park would be on a hard surfaced area used for parking. Whilst more activity on the site may result from the proposal, it's considered this is unlikely to lead to undesirable urbanisation of the site. Subject to conditions, it is considered that the proposal would preserve the openness of the green belt. As the proposals for a main town centre use within a non-urban area, the impact on the vitality and viability of nearby centres also requires consideration. As detailed in the report, given that the proposed cafe would have a floor space of less than 150 square metres, being 143 square metres, the application does not require the submission of a sequential test. Officers consider that the development is unlikely to compromise the role and function of nearby Newsom local centre or Armonbury district centre or the vitality and viability of these centres. Officers consider that the works proposed would not cause detrimental harm to the visual amenity of the locality or the significance of the scheduled ancient monument at Castle Hill, which is over 500 metres from the site. In relation to access, as noted, concerns have been raised in relation to visibility onto K Lane. However, the applicant's agent has provided a plan with visibility displays, as shown on the slide 5, and Kirklees Development Management consider these to be acceptable to allow for sufficient levels of visibility from the access. Development Management Highways also consider on-site parking provision acceptable and have raised no objection to the scheme. Officers considered that, subject to appropriately worded conditions, the proposal would not impact on the amenity of surrounding properties. There have been 5 representations received objecting to the application. These representations are addressed within the report. In light of the above, the application is recommended for approval, subject to the conditions set out within the report. Nothing further to add. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We've got Stephen King.
Yeah.
Hello, Stephen?
Hello, is that Councillor Lane?
It is, yes. You've 3 minutes, but once you get to the last 30 seconds, I'll flag that up, 30 seconds, and then you must finish, otherwise you'll be cut off. Thank you.
Good.
Right, Stephen, you can start.
Okay. Good afternoon, councillors. I have a few points I would like you to consider. The officer has not clearly explained a point made in representations, which is relevant to how he deals with the parking issue. The proposed parking area occupies an existing parking area. The cafe is a new attraction, in addition to the existing ones, i.e. the livery and alpacas. It is considered by highway officers to be likely to lead to more traffic using the access, such that the access has to be widened and resurfaced for the first 30 metres in length. However, the considered view of the highways is even though there will be more vehicle traffic activity, there will be no more parking demand and therefore no risk of off-site, on-street parking or of vehicles waiting on the main road for vehicles to exit the site, which is not logical according to the officer's own assessment. The officer also suggests whether or not the alpaca businesses has planning permission. It is not relevant to the planning application, but the application is in part justified by the wish to expand the alpaca business. The officer has also noted some of the patrons will be customers of the alpaca business, in part offsetting new parking demand. It is either relevant or not relevant. It cannot be relevant to some issues, but not others. Also, the officer informed me that outside seating area would not be allowed because it breached the 150 square metre rule, therefore requiring a sequential test. Could this be clarified? And finally, I would like to reiterate road safety. K Lane, Ashers Lane and Longley Lane all converge on a bad bend that cars speed round, and this is within 20 yards of
30 seconds.
Exit and entrance of the cafe. Thank you for listening to me this afternoon.
Andrew? 5 minutes.
Okay. There's lots to commend about the Gledhill Farm application, and I welcome applicants seeking to diversify to help the sustainability of a locally owned and managed business. My objection is on the basis of road safety. The access to the farm is very close to the junction between Longley Lane and K Lane, and it's very odd that that wasn't shown it was cut off, if you like, on the maps that you saw there. This is a very difficult junction where traffic speeds go well beyond the 30-mile-per-hour speed limit for K Lane, which is a busy route that goes on through Almonbury and onto the town centre. Traffic turning left or right onto K Lane from Longley Lane are frequently faced with cars going to excessive speeds, and adding further traffic from this very nearby entrance to Gledhill Farm can only make this already difficult junction worse. I am very surprised that highways have not commented on this or carried out speed assessments on the road, and I would strongly suggest that such checks are carried out before the application is considered. Highways have opposed the application, though oddly this is not referred to in the papers before you, but it is available to see on the online application. They say, and I quote, "The proposed parking provision is considered to be insufficient for the size of this cafe. It is generally accepted that a cafe with the floor area of 90 square metres should provide in the order of 20 parking spaces, not 15 quoted. And Highways request a revised plan to show this. Highways also request that information is presented to clarify the number of covers for the cafe, and this should be demonstrated on a plan. This will help inform potential parking demand and may provide any opportunity to revise the level of parking provision required. Highways are unable to support the application in its current form and therefore request more information for a proper assessment of the proposals." And that's actually on the page when you go in and look at the planning application online. Highways basically are asking for more parking spaces, fearing that the popularity of the cafe will lead to parking on K Lane near an already difficult junction. But then if more parking spaces are provided, then that will mean more vehicles using this difficult junction. It's a bit of a catch-22 situation for the applicants. My view on this application may well change if a significant traffic calming scheme was carried out on K Lane, making it a safer safer road for all residents and users. So my recommendation would be that the application is turned down on highways grounds, or at the very least that a decision on the application is deferred pending a detailed report on traffic speeds at this junction and proposals on how traffic speeds may be reduced on this already very dangerous road.
Thank you, Andrew.
Still got the applicant to speak.
Oh, sorry. Hello, Stephen. Yes, you have 3 minutes, and I will. You're going to speak, and at 2.5 minutes, I'll say you've 30 seconds left if you get that far, or if you try and go further, I'll cut you off. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. My family have been tenants at Gledhill Farm for close to 100 years. I have been running this farm since I was a lad and seen a lot of changes on the way. 4 years ago, we were offered the opportunity to purchase a farm from Kirklees Council. The area being less than 80 acres, relatively a small farm, and obvious changes in farming today, it seemed prudent we needed an additional income stream to cover the mortgage, so after much deliberation, we thought it would be a good idea to utilise the redundant traditional stone buildings and open a small quirky tea room, offering tea, coffee, cakes, cream teas and ice cream, not cooked food as has wrongly been suggested. 2 years ago, I was again approached by Kirklees with a request to release some of our land to the south of K Lane with a view to tree planting, which I happily agreed to in principle. And after negotiations, agreeing to release 53 acres, amounted to 2/3 of our holding. This is something we are keen to do. For the last 20 years, we have participated in land stewardship schemes, as our family are passionate about combating climate change, and an alternative income not involving conventional farming would allow us to accomplish this. Road safety concerns. It has been noted that we have 2 households that have been worried over certain issues with this application, most of which have been addressed by the planning officers and highways, etc. Regarding road safety concerns, I have lived on the property for 60 years and have never had any issues with entering or leaving our farm lane. This includes any farm traffic, farm animals to and from fields, milk tankers and feed wagons, etc. Having said that, we have negotiated an arrangement with a number 126 to widen our lane to double width into their garden, thereby allowing 2 cars to pass. Also, it has wrongly been assumed that our opening times are 9 till 6. Not the case. It is planned to open 9:30 till 5 and 4:30 in winter, thereby avoiding peak traffic times. It has also been suggested that K Lane is excessively dangerous and motorists break the speed limit. Speeding is not unique to K Lane. Unfortunately, it can occur on any road. Otherwise, I am sure if there was a threat, Highways Department would have already acted on this. As it is, HDM have no concerns. Our vision for this proposal is not one of
30 seconds.
Chaos, but a haven for peace and tranquility. A place where people, families of all ages and abilities can come onto the farm and sit and relax, taking in the beautiful views, looking over Huddersfield and having the added opportunity to see our animals grazing in the fields and watching their behaviour. Very therapeutic and educational for all. What more could you want? Sit outside with fresh air, gorgeous animals, open fields.
Thank you. Your time's up. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Members, I just wondered if you wanted to hear from the highways first. Yes.
Through you, Chair. Since the application was first submitted, further information has been received with regards to the parking, and that has been increased and now considered acceptable. Just to touch on the site access and visibility, as has been previously presented, the site access is to be widened to accommodate 2-way vehicular movements in and out of the site access at the same time. And in addition, sight lines have been demonstrated on a suitable plan of 43 metres in each direction, which is in accordance with Manual for Streets and therefore also considered acceptable. The amount of covers, we've had discussions with the planning officer and they have suggested that the information provided that there'll be 40 covers and to accommodate that 15 parking spaces along with the existing operation is considered acceptable as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members? Yes. Councillor McGuinn.
I share Councillor Cooper's concerns about traffic on K Lane, Ashes Lane and Longley. Yesterday, I was in a car going up K Lane and I was hit by a car coming the opposite direction. Just a complete coincidence, but it was very frightening because there are a lot of cars that are speeding. When we've tackled highways in the past, to say they look at the accident figures, and I suppose every member will have the same answer. That when you challenge the safety of a road, they said, well, look, there's been no serious accidents, there's been no deaths on that road, and that's been ongoing for years. And we happen to, as I said earlier, we share a border, Almonbury and Newsham. I think we've all got concerns about traffic on that road, but there's nothing we can do about it. But where Councillor Cooper did point out where the entrance to the farm is, where Ashes Lane, K Lane and Long Lane all come together. The state of the road was absolutely terrible till a few weeks ago. We did get highways to mend all the potholes on there with the cooperate with Almonbury and Newsham councillors cooperate on that. We got it done. Yeah, we do talk to each other now and again. But the point is, we consider the state of the road. If there are more traffic, there's more and more traffic going down there. With these potholes that are going to keep reoccurring, because everyone knows they're still going to keep reoccurring, it is going to be very, very dangerous on that corner and bend. And so I'm conflicted here. I really want to support the farmer because he's trying to diversify, he's trying to run his business. He needs to be able to make an income, and I think Councillor Cooper alluded to that earlier. No one can deny that farming is a difficult business, and he has diversified the alpaca business. I think the balance has to come down on the safety of residents in the area, and I tend to think, on the balance, I would have to say I'm against this application because I worry, or we can defer it to look at, as Councillor Cooper alluded to, can we defer it to look at how we can improve road safety in that area? If we come back with a good road safety plan, I'd be happy to support him because, as I said, I've talked to him about this, and I think I agree that he does need to increase his business, increase his income, but it's just that road traffic issue, and I have to agree with.
Ben, if I could pick that up from you and ask if does the deferral, does that go down well with members or not? Well, I haven't got unfortunately I haven't got a majority on that.
Yeah, moving. Yes, okay. Yeah, moving.
So all those in favour? Oh, so you'll have to do that. Sorry.
You can go to the roll call, but you can, if you wish to have members to make comments, you can do before we go to that vote. That's perfectly okay.
Well,
it's your call.
Well, Councillor Davies was first. I think. Councillor Davies.
I absolutely understand the sort of, if you like, the attraction to deferral, because I think it would make us feel as if we were doing something extra in terms of road safety. However, I think we do have to take due notice of officers when they provide evidence on road safety, and it is a real issue. And I have sympathy. In my ward, it's no different, with people feeling that roads are unsafe, and yet when we examine the evidence, there is no evidence of that. And it is a very difficult thing, because clearly, the minute you say that, we could have an accident. But I'm not convinced in my mind that deferring would change anything that the highways have said, and that's really for me that is the thing. And you know, it's not a major issue for me if we defer, but I'm really not convinced that it would change anything.
Councillor Homewood,
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Davies. I mean, I understand local councils wanting to get improvements for roads in their area, but I would have said, based on what our highways officers have told us about why it's acceptable, I'm not convinced that road is the worst road in terms of speed danger that there is. I think there's far more roads that have got worse problems than that, and I think to say that you can't have a small cafe on that on the basis of road safety doesn't seem to me to be, you know, sensible on balance to the overall. So I'd be happy to move that the officer recommendation that we approve it.
Well, first of all, I'll take the deferral now. I think it's only fair that they've put that in.
Right, Chair.
Oh, you do that.
I think officers will just want to be clear about what we're actually voting for in terms of deferral. So, Councillor McGuinn, if you could just explain exactly what it is you're wanting from the deferment, please. If you could use your microphone as well, please.
I think we were really worried about road speeds in the area and how we can do some traffic calming measures in the area, and actually if we could do some measuring of the speed of traffic on that road. Because as I said, I was hit yesterday by a car doing in excess of 50-60 miles an hour.
Can I just refer that to officers to just clarify their understanding of that, please?
Thank you, Chair. I know what Councillor McGuinn said, it seemed as simple, perhaps I've got this wrong, is to defer it for highways to undertake a traffic speed survey along K Lane.
Yeah.
In the vicinity of the application site.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we'll do a vote then on deferment as summarised there by Teresa.
For.
Against.
Against.
For.
Against.
For.
Against.
Against.
That's 4 voted for deferment, 6 voted against, so that motion has fallen.
Councillor Homewood moved officer's recommendation, I believe. Now, yes, is that seconded? Councillor Davies, right, I'm prepared to put that to the vote.
Okay, so this is a vote now for officer recommendation as outlined in this submitted report.
Against.
For.
For.
Abstain.
For.
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 So that's 8 votes for, 1 against, 1 abstention, so officer recommendation is carried.
That concludes the meeting. Thank you very much.